राष्ट्राः कार्पण्यदोषोपहतस्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्याधिष्ठितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनो स्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नवृत्तम् राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप न योत्स्यति गोविन्दम् तमुवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासु न गतासूश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं मे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम् हीनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यते। मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्याः तां तितिक्षस्व भारत यं विना व्यतयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते। After the long monologue, Arjuna accepted his inability. Admitting his inability to decide on the issue, he surrenders to Krishna. So the starting point of receiving knowledge is to admit one's inability to decide. That inability to decide is because of lack of clarity, lack of knowledge. And what is this lack of clarity? Clarity means the capacity to see the end in the beginning. That's clarity. The capacity to see the end in the beginning. If you have that, it's known as you have clarity. See the seed, you understand the tree. That's clarity. Look at your today, you can understand your tomorrow. That's clarity. The capacity to see the invisible in the visible. The capacity to see the invisible in the visible is clarity. From another angle, clarity is an understanding that actions has consequence. 3 types of actions: thought, word and deed. Every thought that I entertain has a consequence. Every word I utter has a consequence. Every action I execute has a consequence. The very recognition that there is a consequence before it is done is clarity. Again I repeat, the capacity to understand that there is a consequence, that's clarity. Another way of looking at clarity is every choice that you make is every choice that you make comes as a package. There is no unit choice. Every choice that you make comes as a package. Now, having made the choice, you need to accept the entire package. Once you do that, there is no difficulty. Now, package in the sense, I'll go explaining every statement in the reverse order now. See, package means, you come for this class. It's a package. You might like the logic and the explanation, but you may not like my voice. You may like my voice, but you might say, ரொம்ப ஸ்லோவா பேசுறீங்க சார் நீங்க. Entertainment quotient ரொம்ப கம்மி. It's a package. Having made a choice, you have to understand that something in it will be of your preference, something in it won't be of your preference. That's clarity. So before I make a choice, I can understand what the package is. Three distinct ways of understanding clarity. Every choice that you make comes to you as a package. You marry a person, that person is a package. You buy a car, that car is a package. Everything is very good in that car, but mileage is not. Mileage vardella, sir. Mileage is very good, but then you go at 80, 100, the car is wobbling. It's a package. Any choice that you make comes to you as a package. The understanding is, the clarity is, before you execute the choice, you can understand what the package is. The difficulties in life arises when we make the choice not realizing that it's a package. Package means what? Again I repeat. Package means something in it will be of your like, of your preference. Something in it will not be of your preference. There can never be a choice where you can have everything of your preference, of your like. That doesn't exist at all. That's clarity. That is from one angle. When I was getting married, I told her that please understand, I am a package, I said. I am a package, because something you will have, because I understand that you are a package, but you should also understand I am a package. What does that package means? Something in it you will like, something in it you will not like, and yet it is these two combined is what the choice is made up of. That's why they say this world is these opposites. This world is made up of these pairs of opposites. It means what? Something will be of your preference, something will not be of your preference. But nevertheless, you need to experience both. That's clarity. That's clarity. So you make a choice, you understand the package. That is from one angle. From another angle, clarity is the capacity to understand everything has a consequence. The moment you become aware of the consequence, you become so conscious, you will become so alert. Since we are not aware of a thing called consequence, we entertain thoughts that we wish. We entertain words, we speak words that we wish. Not to talk about that's law of karma, where he says there is a consequence. Be aware of the consequence. I do something, and when I face the consequence, I do not know how to connect both. I'll turn back and say, what did I do, sir, to deserve this? I have not done anything wrong at all in my life for me to experience this, for me to go through this. But still, why it comes? Maybe something I did 5 janmas back is coming back to lack of clarity. What is the lack of clarity? An awareness of consequence. It's there above you, watching you all the time. Imagine you are placed under surveillance 24/7. There is a CC camera above your head all the time. Even in the darkest place where you switch off all the lights, it can still watch you, capture you. How alert you will be, how careful you will be. That's clarity. There is no need for someone to come and watch like that. The clarity itself understands what? There is a consequence. Therefore, let me be. That's clarity from another angle. Combine all these three, you will get an idea of what clarity. And the deepest is this: the capacity to see the invisible in the visible. The capacity to see the invisible in the visible. The seed is visible, the tree is invisible. But looking at the seed, you understand the tree. Look at your today, you can understand your tomorrow. Because he says, tomorrow doesn't come out of your calendar. Tomorrow comes out of your today. Tomorrow doesn't come out of, and we think tomorrow comes out of tomorrow. No, don't look at the calendar, he says. Tomorrow means look at your today. Or your today is from your yesterday. It's a very straightforward understanding. Similarly, your tomorrow is going to be of your. Therefore, clarity says pay attention to today. Clarity says pay attention to today, because for all practical purposes, the reality is today. For all practical purposes, what you have is, have you ever encountered a tomorrow? Only in your imagination tomorrow you can encounter. In reality, you encounter only. That's why if anyone comes and asks, tomorrow we will do solunga. You don't have to do it at all. Because every time he come and ask, you can give the same answer. You asked me yesterday, I say, tomorrow. You come and ask, today. No, I told you no tomorrow. Because you can never encounter a tomorrow. You always encounter the today. That's clarity. So the clarity says, focus on the today. The unreal is tomorrow, the real is today. Ignorance is attracted to the unreal and forgets that's ignorance. That's the very nature of ignorance. Like everyone asks, is there God? Actually, what you should ask? You should ask, is there a world? You should not ask, is there God? Because God is real. The ignorance, which is so much associated with the world, asks question about, is there? Are you able to follow? Clarity is this distinction. What is this distinction? The capacity to segregate, the capacity to discriminate, the capacity to distinguish. That's clarity. Distinguishing what? Discriminating what? The real and the unreal, the visible and the invisible. The moving wheel is supported by the unmoving. The moving wheel is supported by the unmoving axle. Now you can get carried away by the movement of the wheel, or you can focus on the unmoving. That's clarity. The capacity to see the invisible in the example is the child sitting and watching television the whole day. You will not allow the child to do that. Why? In that today you are able to see the child's tomorrow. As far as the child is concerned, you can see, but you can't see it about your own self. Krishna is saying, don't look at the child, first look at yourself. That is clarity. Arjuna, first time he is admitting that he lacks this clarity. First time he is admitting that I lack this clarity, therefore I am unable to decide. Tell me, help me to decide on this issue. Help me to decide on this issue. And when you go for help, when you admit your inability, all that he says is, don't go in halves and quarters. Go fully. Most of the time, when we go to advice, it's very, very, very interesting. We will go to advice, or looks like we are going to advise to those who will say yes to us. When one child has a problem, it will go to another child for guidance. That's why it will come and say, I discussed it with my friends. You get you feel like giving one slap to the child and two slap to the friend who guided the child. It's very interesting where when one child has the problem, to whom the child will go for advice. It will not come to the teacher. It will not come to the parents. Why? Why it will not come? Because deep inside it knows whom to go. Therefore, whom to go, where it can get an yes. So even when we go to advice, we actually do not go. All that we want to hear is, and if you keep saying yes, you will become a very good advisor. Simply say, Krishna is waiting for Arjuna to come to that point. What is that point? Of coming for advice, admitting one's inability. That's what he says. The Guru always waits up to that point because of the law. Knowledge is never given, it's always taken. The principle of education, the principle behind teaching, he says, is knowledge is always taken. It's never taken means the other admits his inability. You have to wait. And Krishna being the true Guru, that's why he's called Jagat Guru. He knows. He was patiently waiting. Not only patiently waiting, listening to all that he was talking also. That is more painful. See, for an ignorant man, to listen to the wise man is inspiring. Understand the reverse. What will be the condition of the wise man to listen to? How painful it has to be. And yet, with all his love and compassion, and he just waited, and Arjuna surrendered. The surrender is all surface emotions got exhausted, admitting his inability to decide on the issue. Arjuna is asking, tell me decisively which is good for me. Instruct me who has taken refuge in you. Refuge means you are the only, that's refuge. Refuge means you are the only source. No second opinion, third opinion, Allah. That is refuge. It's not like going to one doctor and then, okay, go to another doctor for second opinion, go to another doctor for third opinion. It's not like that. Refuge means it is that one source for everything. One source of knowledge for everything. You can go to him with a medical problem, he can guide you. You go to him with a legal problem, he can guide you. But he is not a lawyer. Go to a medical problem, he can guide you. But he is not a doctor. You go to him with a problem of how to distribute the wealth, economics problem, that also he can, and he is nowhere, he is not an economist. Ramana says, it's the clarity. It is that clarity. What is that clarity? A detached perception of everything is clarity. He gets that clarity because detached perception, what is known as objectivity. A detached perception. He sees it, but there is an element of detachment in that perception. And Krishna is ready to give the knowledge to one who has surrendered. To receive the knowledge of Krishna, we should also get into that framework of surrender. Verse number 8.
Rajyam Suranamapi Chadhipatyam Nahi Prapashyami Mamapanudhyat Yachokamujjoshanamindriyanam Avapya Bhuma Vasapatnamritam Rajyam Suranamapi Chadhipatyam.
I do not see that which can remove the grief which is drying up my senses, even on obtaining prosperous and unrivaled kingdom on earth and lordship over the gods. Previous verse Arjuna surrendered. But then grief again, immediately in the next verse grief took over. So he is saying, this grief is burning, he says. The shoka is burning. There are, when you go through real grief, when you go through real shoka, there are people who goes through the real grief, real pain. They say, something is burning here. Something is sitting here, churning, burning, and I can't see anything that can appease that. I do not see that which can remove the grief. That's what he's saying. The shoka that I am going through, Krishna, even though I have surrendered to you, I don't think it will go, because the shoka is so deep, and I can't believe, I can't assume there can be anything that can remove the grief. I am going to obtain prosperity. I am going to obtain prosperity. And what is that prosperity? Unrivaled. Unrivaled kingdom is what I am going to get. And lordship over the gods. Meaning, my present is secured, my future is secured, for the next 5 generations also is secured, everything is so secured. But grief is there, no? That's what he's asking. Everything is so set from outside, everything is so secured from outside. In spite of all this, there is the grief, and I can't see anything that can remove the grief. When emotions overpower, when emotions take over, it results in grief. When emotions overpower, it results in grief, because in that overpowered state, in that impulsive state, so much of things that ought not to be done will be done, and it bounces back and it hurts. That's the grief. Are you able to follow? When emotions overpower, when emotions take over, the person start doing actions which he has no clue as to what he is doing, what is going to be the consequences of it. He is not aware of that. Therefore, what happens? He does it and it bounces back. When it bounces back, he finds no way to escape from that. He says, any amount of prashchitta I do doesn't. Yeah, prashchitta after prashchitta I am doing. Others' bank balance are increasing. Simultaneously, my grief is also increasing. It doesn't work out. What is the reason? Understand the sequence. When emotions overpower, what happens? The discrimination goes. When emotions overpower, discrimination goes. And when discrimination is gone, the human being does things that he should not be doing. All other species don't have this problem, because nature protects. Nature interferes and keeps disconnecting. The mother wild buffalo is trying to protect its little one from the lions. The lions are attacking and is trying to fight. Sometimes the mother can chase away, sometimes the mother cannot chase away. When it chases away, it doesn't jump with joy and tell everyone, what? See how it doesn't do that also. Sometimes it loses, and the lions have not told. Chokes the little one to death, tears open and starts eating, and the mother buffalo starts grazing as though you should see that, It will go to a distance, turn back and see the lions eating. Whom? Its owner. At some point of time, we do not know at what point of time it happens, but all that we understand is at some point of time nature interferes and disconnects. It continues as though nothing has happened, but it remains an animal. It can't do anything beyond that. In the case of a human being, there is this overpowering emotion. Emotions. There seems to be no force that can come and there seems to be no force available in a human being that can come and combat that. That force is what is called as intellect, buddhi. That force that can keep the emotions under check. Here the human being is left to fend for himself. 5 more minutes of this explanation, you will feel like saying, better that animal life, sir. Better is that animal life. Don't ever say that. Better to be an agitated human being rather than an animal, because in a human being there is a possibility that you can become, the potential for freedom is there. The possibility of freedom is there only in a human being. All that is needed is what? Some effort is required. What is that effort? That effort to develop that intellect which can combat the force of the emotions. That's all the difficulty is. To understand this, very simple. Follow this example. You see the fan when it is switched off. 3 blades equidistant, 3 blades, and make the fan to rotate in full speed. What do you see? How does it look like? Looks like one plate. Looks like one plate rotating. Take your hand, it gets cut. Correct? Now carefully follow. Your hands are getting cut because the speed of the fan is more compared to what? Compared to the movement of your hand. Supposing if you can make your hand move faster than the speed of the rotation, what will happen? You can take the hand up and down, hands will not get cut. Not only that, you can stop are you able to understand? All that you need to develop is the greater. You don't have to worry about that force. You need to develop the greater force. And that greater force is what is called as intellect. Hands vachila try pannadingo. Try panna sir, and next class no right hand because of your classes. What is very interesting is, even when it is rotating at full speed, the distance is still the same. The distance doesn't get reduced. Correct? The distance is still the same. What is the proof? Make a paper ball and throw. It will go through. Sometimes children will play that. They make balls, paper balls, lie down and keep throwing. Out of 10 times, 6-7 times, it will pass through. But for naked eyes, the force seems to be so. All that you need is what? To develop that greater force requires effort. Mind that resists any form of effort will not want to develop that greater. The tragedy of life is this. You have clarity, you can protect yourself. With your clarity, you can't protect another. If one's clarity, others can be protected. Now, with the clarity of one enlightened master, we all should have been protected by now. The difficulty is, you can't hire clarity. You need to develop it for yourself. You can't borrow clarity. You can't hire clarity. You can't keep clarity for a fee. To develop that clarity, that much of knowledge is required. So much of explanation is required. When that clarity comes, the grief subsides. If not, the grief is always there. Either it's there in the present or the potential is there. Supposing if you are not experiencing the grief, it's not that you have transcended it. The potential is there. One or two events not going your way can bring the grief, surface it. It's hiding. It's not gone. It's hiding. What is that grief? What is the grief? Emotions overpowering. When emotions overpower, you do things that you should not. You say things that you should not say. You entertain thoughts that you should not entertain. Nevertheless, it comes back. When it comes back, you do not know how to escape. That's the grief. I do not see that which can remove the grief, Krishna, because it is so deep. It's so deep. Why the grief is so deep in the case of Arjuna? Because he knows that if the fight begins, he has won so many wars, so many battles. He knows what battle is. What is the war? He knows that. What is the war? And the way in which they were fighting. The way in which they were fighting is a very crude way of fighting. Someone is 40% dying, someone is 60% dying, someone's hand is cut, someone's legs are cut, and the whole place is full of the cry of pain, anguish, suffering, and you have to continue as though nothing is happening. You can go through all this comfortably the moment you call the other as your enemy. You can go through this war, you can go through this anguish comfortably when you call the other as enemy. Here, who's going to go through all this? Who's going to go through all this? His own. How can he accept his own going through anguish and suffering? Therefore, he says, Krishna, ipo kuda chance irukku. Even now we have enough time. Let us go back. If Krishna would have said yes now, we would have been free now. Sunday morning ingondu ukarvana. Because there will not be any Bhagavad Gita. What happens when grief overpowers? Incapacitated. Lack of clarity leads to emotions overpowering. Overpowering emotions leads to incapacity. Therefore you find next verse 9, which we will do now. He is saying, I will not. That's the time he puts down his bow and arrow and is going to say, Inime, I gave up. After he gives up, Krishna starts the sermon. And verses 11 to 30, when you are doing the course, he used to say, 11 to 30 get by heart. Verses 11 to 30 get by heart. Because the highest knowledge is given straight away, hoping that Arjuna will catch. If he doesn't catch, further explanation. 18 chapters. Arjuna got tired of listening. And the only way to keep him quiet is to say what? The only way to make Krishna quiet now is what? I have understood. Supposing we come, Om Gana, invocation la mudichitu, Venkat also finishes chanting, and then in chorus, if everyone says, all that you are going to say, we know. Abdina, what to speak after that? Yeah. I say we'll wait for the breakfast place to open. 8 o'clock then they open Mandraga, we'll wait here. So wonderful is the explanation of how the emotions overpower. when emotions overpower, it takes shelter under goodness. It takes shelter under morality. It takes shelter under pseudo-righteousness. It doesn't take shelter, it doesn't come directly. That's where you find in the beginning Arjuna kept on talking about the morals, the society, the welfare of others. When mind overpowers, when emotions overpowers, it takes shelter under morality. It takes shelter under something higher. Because the moment it takes shelter under something higher, whatsoever you do gets justified after that. Like a simple example, you steal for yourself, you feel very bad. That night you feel very guilty. Yeah, why I am doing? You should not have. And that maybe tomorrow I will go and leave it back. You steal and tell yourself it is for others. You will not feel guilty. You understand that? That's how when emotions overpower, immediately it takes shelter under morals, ethics, for the good of others. Like normally you kill, you feel bad. You kill in the name of religion, you will not feel guilty. Not only you will not feel guilty, you will assume that you are going to go to heaven also. Very interesting is this. That's where this emotions overpowering is so dangerous, because it always takes protection under some morality. I am not interested. I am only seeing. I make a mincemeat of you, and then I say I am not interested. All that I am saying is only for your welfare. Take it or leave it. The moment I bring in the word welfare of you, down the line everything I do gets justified. You understand? But then what happens to that individual's life? A point of time comes where there is an incapacitated to act. What does that incapacity to act means? What is that incapacity to act? Slave. What is losing that capacity? The individual become incapacitated to act. What is becoming incapacitated to act? Overpowering emotion. Incapacitated to act means quickly finish the activity and relax. That's all it is. Quickly find a technique, find a method by which it can be done. It can be done quick, fast, so that you can. But then the word that you will use is, you will not use the word quick. What word you will use? Efficiency. Yeah, Radhakrishnan, correct. Efficiency. Efficiency means finish it off fast. Why? Because doing it is so painful. Start with the very high noble things. Down the line, somewhere we want to quickly finish. Because of what? Incapacitated to act. That's where if others say, I will do it now. If you start something, others come and say, don't worry, I will do it now. What a relief. If someone comes and says, I will take care of your child, don't worry now. Abba, I can go for a movie and come back, no? Sometimes they do, no? They leave the child in the neighbor's house, go on. This is what is known as incapacitated to. Exactly the opposite of it is, more you act, more inspired you are to do more. That's efficiency. Again I repeat, more you act, more you are inspired to do more. Incapacitated to act means, I wake up in the morning and I think, oh, Sunday va, 2 classes adu, back to, and then I have to bring all my thing and come and sit here na. I am incapacitated to act. I might still talk, I might still do it, and you won't even know that I have become incapacitated. Are you able to follow? You will not know it. Krishna says, If others don't know it, it's okay. But if you yourself don't know it, that's the tragedy. What is the incapacity to act? The willingness to goes because of overpowering emotions resulting in grief. In grief, what happens? You freeze. Everything comes to a stand. Herein the message of Gita. The message of Gita is to this person who has led himself to the state of incapacitated to act after becoming what? After becoming a master in that field. After becoming a master. That's why Arjuna is very interesting. This was not given to any ordinary soldier. This was given to Arjuna. And one of the name of Arjuna is Savyasachin. Savyasachin means he can shoot with both hands. He can shoot with the same skill, with the same dexterity, with the right hand. If someone is coming this side, he need not turn. Simply use the... Now, what amount of... Meaning what? He has attained perfection in that art. That man who has put in so much of effort to attain perfection in that art becomes incapacitated to such a person, to such a human being, the message of Gita resurrects. That's the thing. That's the fallen Arjuna and the message of the Gita. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus to Hrishikesha, Gudakesha, the destroyer of force, said to Govinda, I will not fight and became silent. Meaning what? The end result of self-centered, selfish activities. This will be the end result of selfish, self-centered activities, where you become incapacitated to all activities. When he says all activities stops, what it means is you reach a point where everything around you will be there, but nothing will be of any use. I still remember that man in Mysore. He came home and he was telling me, you know, sir, 70 years, what have I achieved? I said, only you should tell me. How do I know? You tell me. Wake up in the morning, Karela juice or grass juice. Grass juice buffaloes will have. Why human beings need to have grass juice? Wake up in the morning, you have to have Karela juice or grass juice. 9 o'clock breakfast. What is for breakfast? 2 idlis or 1 dosa for breakfast. 11 o'clock, 1 glass of buttermilk, no salt. 1 o'clock, rice, that too one katori, small cup. 4 o'clock with 3 Mari biscuits. Dinner, fast. Chapati illa. Chapati, you are still 16 or so. Fast, you have reached 70. He is asking, all that I did to come to this point. He said, even the beggar will get, even a beggar on the roadside will get all this. You don't have to. End result of selfish, self-centered activities is this. And the only entertainment is what? Only entertainment is torture others to enjoy. Torture others to enjoy. That becomes your only. The end result of selfish, self-centered activities. What is that? I will not fight and became Hrishikesha, means Krishna. Lord of the Gudakesha means conqueror of. Isha means Lord. Even today, in local language, they scold. When they pick up a fight, they pick up and they use this word. How do they use it? In local language, they say it. Seriana Gudakapa. They say, have you heard that word? Seriana Gudak. Gudaka means one who is Tungumunji. He is a man who is sleeping all the time, lazy, asleep all the time. Arjuna is not that man. Arjuna is not. He is the conqueror of sleep. Conqueror of sleep means conqueror of inactivity. Conqueror of sleep means conqueror of inactivity. That man who has conquered inactivity is now saying what? That Gudaka Isha has become another Satama Soladingo. Yeah, this is Bhagavad Gita class. Within yourself you say that. He has become another fallen to sleep. And nausea for activity. And aversion for action. That's all. And aversion for action. And nausea for action. A clear indication of shirking work. A clear indication of shirking responsibility. Whereas working for a cause, endless enthusiasm, endless energy. He revels in whatever he does. He is the one who is working for a higher cause. What happens to the one who is selfish, self-centered? Comes to a standstill. What is that standstill point? Inactivity. That man who has become inactive will not know that. Who is saying that? That's why Sanjaya is reporting that. All that Arjuna said is, something is churning here, something is burning here. I am overpowered by grief. And he fainted. He will not know that. Who is reporting that he became silent? Sanjaya is reporting. Because the man who has become inactive will not know that. The depressed man will not know that he is depressed. A mad man will not know that he is mad. Others around him only. Now Sanjaya is saying, Arjuna has become, verse number 10. Now, Sanjaya is continuing. To him who was despondent in the midst of two armies, Hrishikesha, smiling as it were, spoke these words, O Bharata. He thought Sanjaya also will keep quiet. Thank God all these fellows are going to be quiet so that we can hear Krishna. So boring to sit and hear, to listen to this people talk. And Sanjaya is giving the picture of the situation now. What is the picture? Arjuna is saying, something is burning here, churning here. I am in grief. And Krishna is smiling. Contrasting pictures. He is smiling, as it were. Not literally smiling as it were. Prahasanniva Bharata. Bharata is the common name of the family. That's why Bharata means Dhritarashtra. Krishna calls Arjuna Bharata. Bharata is a family name. Now Bharata here refers to Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya is talking to Dhritarashtra. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye. In the midst of two armies. In the midst of two armies. Right from chapter 1, you find this references coming again and again and again. What is the reference? In the midst of the two armies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas. The repetition of these two armies is very significant. He goes on, what two armies mean? The higher and the lower. The higher and the lower. The evil and the virtue. The lower derives its strength from numbers. That's where the Kauravas were large in numbers. Again I repeat, the evil derives its strength from numbers. If you are dependent on numbers, you are evil. Correct. That's what. Krishna is two armies, and Kauravas are much more in numbers, and Pandavas are less in numbers. Evil, weakness, lower tendencies derives its strength from numbers. When you are weak, you become dependent on numbers. When you are weak, what is the dependency? You know, sir, 10,000 times I have written Sri Ram Jayam. That will, oh, you have written only 10,000 times. I have written 1 lakh. 1 lakh. Numbers. It is the numbers that gives strength. What derives strength from numbers? Always remember this. Evil derives its strength through numbers. Krishna offered, unarmed, unprotected, I will be on one side. My entire army will be on the other side. Correct? Arjuna and Duryodhana both came to Krishna for seeking his help. And he is equally obligated to both, because he is a common cousin for both. And when both of them came, Krishna said, okay, I have to cater to both, so I will do this. On one side I will be unarmed, unprotected. Unarmed, unprotected means I will come into the battlefield without wearing a bulletproof jacket. He becomes a liability, no? Correct? He becomes on one hand, I will be unarmed, unprotected. On the other hand, is my armies. Choose what you want. Evil chose the numbers. That's where even today you are dependent on numbers. Only 1,000 rupees in the bank balance. Something happens. Shoka, you will know. Then you will know what Shoka is. 100,000 rupees bank balance shoots up. Habada. Correct? Evil is dependent upon numbers. Take it or leave it. Krishna is saying that. That's why he goes on repeating the two armies. On one side, the numbers are more. On the other side, the numbers are less. And Krishna is on whose side? Where the numbers are less. Oh, numbers are less, poor people, therefore I should go and protect the poor. He's not a cinema hero. He's not a movie hero. What he means is, when you are wanting to become virtuous, when you are wanting to become noble, when you are wanting to turn spiritual, you will have to walk the path with very few or all by yourself. You can't walk as the herd. In hundreds and thousands and all, you cannot walk. You have to walk it all by yourself. That needs courage. Today we are dependent on at least yaru illenna ningalaadu irpilla sir. How do I know? That is the difference between the virtue and the good and the bad. Number one. Number two, evil implies destruction, which is easier. Evil implies destruction, which is easier. Virtue implies effort, tapas, construction, which is very, very difficult. For example, you can bring a machine and bring the whole building down in? You can bring a machine and bring the building down in few minutes. Yeah. இல்லை சார் செகண்ட்ஸ்லேயே வீடியோ பார்த்தோமே நாங்கள். We are not discussing politics here. Destruction is easier. Construction is difficult. To destroy yourself, you don't need the support of divine. If you have to evolve, you need the support of divine. So wherever there is wanting to evolve, divine goes and attaches itself there. That's what he's saying. That's the significance. Wherever there is a genuine effort, wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, wanting to do tapas, divine goes and attaches itself. Exactly opposite of that is evil. What is evil? Destructive. And destructive forces are always large in numbers. If you don't understand this, another example I'll give you. Lies can be many. Truth is always correct. You can lie in any number of ways. You can lie. Truth can be only one, and it can be only repeated. But what is the power of that one compared to the many lies? Are you able to understand this? That's why he says, why are you saying the same thing that what they spoke 5,000 years back? Why can't you say something new? In one of the classes, one person asked, I said, lies can be many, truth can be only one, and it can be only repeated. Are you able to understand? But the power of that one compared to the power of the many, the power of many becomes powerless in front of that last, unarmed, unprotected, because he is protected from within. He is protected from dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. When you are protected by dharma, you don't need any other protection. Therefore, Krishna can say, I will come into the battlefield unarmed, unprotected. No, sir, he is Narayana, no? Who can shoot against him? Na? Don't study Bhagavad Gita. He will not understand. He is unarmed, unprotected. And that man is looking at Arjuna, smiling. When Arjuna is saying, I am burning in grief. Something is churning inside. I am getting destroyed. Why are you? The most opposite of compassion is, what is the opposite of compassion? Opposite of compassion is sadist, correct. When a man is crying, one person is laughing. And why he is laughing? Why he is laughing? Laughing at the fall. Laughing at the, what a fall, Arjuna. What a fall. What a fall. A person having no capacity and failing is different from the person who has all the capacity and fails. That's where in Bhajagovindam he gives his description. A person who lost in the first round of Wimbledon, you will tell him, better luck next time. A man who went to the finals, having a party because he reached the finals, instead of seeing one ball, he is seeing two balls, because he is still having the hangover, correct? He is still having the hangover. What will you tell him? You will not tell him better luck next time. You will tell him what? You feel like laughing at him. You say, what a foolish man you are, having come to this height, not able to hold yourself. Just for that one, you lost everything because you are not able to hold yourself for that one day. You lose everything in life because you are not able to hold yourself for that one moment. Rest of the lifetime you will regret. That's a different story. But then what is done is, you have to face the consequence. So Arjuna is saying, I am in shoka, Krishna is saying, smiling. Also smiling because he knows the solution. He has the solution, and he is ready to impart. Abbada, ippayadu kekanum thonitha unakku. That is that smile. See, that man is going through pain and after pain after pain after pain, and you are ready to help. That man doesn't come at all. And finally, he comes. What will you tell him? What will you tell him? At least now you came. No. Start listening to my verse number 11. We'll start from next week. 11 to 30. The highest knowledge. It's called the indestructibility of the embodied. Verses from Kathopanishad. Directly he takes verses from Kathopanishad and quotes. Extraordinary piece of 20 verses. And he goes on talking about one thing. Natvam shositum arhasi, nanu shositum arhasi, natvam shositu. Why are you in grief? Why are you in grief? Why are you in grief? He finishes him off. Verses 11 to, from verse 11, proper Gita, lordship over the gods, meaning I am going to do the dharma of the Kshatriya. When I follow the dharma of the Kshatriya, I win the battle now, and I go to heaven. And when you do the dharma and when you go to heaven, what would be your status in heaven? What would be your position in heaven? You will become the lord of the heaven. In that sense, Arjuna is saying, I will win the kingdom here, I will become the lords over the gods. Gods here means the Vedic gods. Indra, Vayu, Agni, those gods. I become the lord of the gods mean I will attain the status of Indra himself. Relatively speaking, the status of Indra is highest. Relatively speaking, the status of Indra is highest. What is the status of Indra in the modern day context? In the modern day context?
Prime Minister.
Huh?
Prime Minister.
Yaru?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. That's not that. Who is the modern day Indra? Where everyone wanting to aspire. Even Prime Minister goes and falls at his feet. Yaru? Huh? Yaru? Multi-millionaire, correct. Bill Gates. Yeah. He is the Indra because he is the lord of the gods. Who are the gods? Prime Minister is one god, Chief Minister is another god, and that Prime Minister and Chief Minister will go and fall at the feet of someone. He has to be a god. Who is that god? Bill Gates, or maybe Premji, yeah, that is his god. Yeah, I'm just waiting. Yeah. Whatever names you say, that is your god. That's what he said. Indra means that. In those days, even now it's the same thing. We aspire at the first stage as the lord of the gods. Indra, what in the Vedas they say as the position of Indra. Even today everyone is aspiring for the position of Indra. I aspire for the position of Indra for me, and I want my child also to become another Indra. Because moment you get that, everything. So Arjuna is saying, Krishna, I will get this now, I will get that there, but in spite of getting all this shoka will not go. That's where Indra also is jealous. Indra also feels jealous. Indra also feels threatened about his position. Correct? That's what he's saying. Even if I attain that attainment also will not make me happy, make me free. Why? Because that thing that is burning inside will not go. Are you able to follow? In that sense is known as the Lord of the gods. having become the lord of the gods, why they should feel jealous? Indra is supposed to be, that's why it's called Devendra, no? And he also feels jealous. Jealous of whom? Anybody who's doing tapas, he tries to destroy that. Clear? Because his position will be threatened, because he will become the Lord. Therefore, do what? Buy him up. Clear? First, buy him up. If he doesn't agree to the price, send Apsaras as a final destruction. Send Apsaras. And looking at the Apsaras, he falls. So that his position is safer. Correct? In that sense, Lord of the gods. I can become the Lord here. I can become the Lord of the heaven. But Shoka will not go Krishna. Because that Shoka is Seriya? Is it okay? Yes. Lord of the senses means not Lord in the sense of Krishikesha. Not in the sense of Krishikesha. In the sense of, he is Lord of the senses. In what sense? Not as one who has conquered it. As one who has slave to it. He is a victim to it. That's why he says, mind is equated to Indra. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, whenever he uses the Lord of the mind, he uses Indra as in the sense of the mind. Even though it's the Lord, actually it's not the Lord. He is a slave. That's where in Govardhan, Krishna said, don't pray. Why are you praying to Indra? Why are you praying to Indra? Pray. You should worship me. Why are you worshipping Indra? And Indra got? It's true. When higher comes and tells you don't do it, mind will get angry at the higher, no? Correct? The mind always gets angry at the higher because it is interfering with the higher interferes with your indulgences, and anything that interferes with your indulgences, you get agitated, you get angry. And Indra got angry at Krishna because he said, don't worship. That's where you find in Kenopanishad, Indra is the student. In Kenopanishad, Indra becomes the student. He is the one who saw Haimavati, the daughter of the apparition. In the Kenopanishad 3 and 4, he talks about Indra as the student. So it's a relative state of supremacy. But the relative state of supremacy still keeps the grief alive, the sorrow alive.